Now you know how I feel about why I feel the way I feel. And that's not right. There's something wrong with Excel. I'll figure that out. But you get the idea. And in fact, in this case, it's easy to see. Uh, for those ratios to be the same, NVIDIA's price has to go up by, I'm going to do it by hand, 27.59 divided by 1934 times the current price. So NVIDIA should be trading around $200, right? Again, just like the regular PE, don't take this too seriously because there is more stuff you need to do. In fact, you need to be able to estimate more growth in the future. There is one ratio we use to make price correction or growth correction. It is called the PEG ratio. Let me write it. This is PE ratio divided by estimated annual growth rate for the next 5 years. You could use, I, I think they generally use the trailing PE to calculate PE, and sites like FinanceYahoo.com gives those in their statistics. The PEG ratio is 1 for NVIDIA. Let's look at the same number for Microsoft. And 216. I'm going to do a simple exercise. Basically, I'm going to convert this into a 5 year PE. Again, what I'm going to do does not contain any independent information because this takes what you want to call PE and divides it by the average growth rate. But it is not easy to interpret that. Yes, you still want that number to be low. The lower it is, the cheaper is the company adjusted for growth. Or the higher it is, the more expensive is the company adjusted for growth. So PEG ratio says uh, PE divided by 5 year growth. That means 5 year average growth rate is equal to PEG or PE divided by PEG. So let's do it. um, Assuming Excel actually is going to work. Let's see. PE or price, PE, PEG, and current EPS, and we'll calculate other stuff. So 416, current EPS price divided by PE. 5-year growth is PE divided by PEG. So I'm going to also divide that by 100 to turn into decimal. Right. So according to market analysts, Microsoft is expected to grow about 15% on average over the next 5 years. Analysts, especially covering big companies like this, tend to be a little bit more optimistic. There's also something called herding. Nobody wants to forecast a low growth ratio and be the one that is an error. So they tend to kind of go towards the average. And two, if you're one of those renegades and say, oh, Microsoft is going to grow only 7%, the flow of information from Microsoft management to you as an analyst is going to be severely restricted. They're going to throw shade on you. Oh, you don't think good of us, so we ain't telling you nothing. Trust me, this sort of stuff happens all the time. So you're gonna take those at a little bit face value, but to the extent that they make similar mistake across companies, when you make pairwise comparisons, it doesn't make too much difference. Let's. This is for Microsoft. So let's do year one. My current EPS times 1 plus the 5-year growth. By the way, if something starts with a 1, if you drag it, it goes 2, 3, 4, 5. Calculate the average. So taking those average EPS, taking those growth rates implied by the PEG ratio seriously, market is expecting that over the next 5 years, Microsoft is going to pay on average a little bit less than $20 per share. Not pay, earn a little bit less than $20 per share. Let's do the same numbers for NVIDIA. 38, 55, 1. The rest are formulas. Okay. So they're expected to earn about 392. So 5 years PE, forward PE actually. By the way, none of this is in your book. That's one of the reasons I wanted to dedicate this lecture to these things instead of a Jeopardy. Not because I don't think Jeopardy is a valuable thing, but it also kind of happened to be serendipitous because doing Jeopardy on Zoom it was going to be challenging. We can do it. I have to set up the chat rooms for groups and stuff, but why bother? We could even do better stuff with our time. I think I did something wrong. Oh, you're not telling me that I did something wrong. I multiplied with it 1 plus the growth rate of Microsoft. Instead of fixing only the row, I also fixed the column. Well, let me show you that. Uh, in these, you hit F4 until you put a dollar sign on the row. Same thing here. Nothing changes for Microsoft, obviously. But now when I drag this, it refers to the correct one. Those dollar signs means when you copy these formula, if there's a dollar in front of a row or column figure, which one is going to be fixed? Here I'm saying fix the row. Whether I post this thing into row 35 or 3 million, there is no row 3 million, but if there was one, it will always refer to row 6. But I'm allowed to shift the reference to the column. So it's kind of a partial absolute reference. And look at this. And this is not too much different from numbers that we get compared to a 2-year FPE. But this basically says, roughly speaking, relative to NVIDIA, Microsoft is 40% overvalued. Some of that can be explained by differentials in risk. Obviously, NVIDIA cash flows are riskier than Microsoft's, but I don't think enough could be. Let's do a similar exercise for S&P 500. And I'm going to get the current PE ratios from a different website for S&P 500. This is rather useful. If you go to multipl.com, S&P PE ratio. In fact, this is the historical graph of that. The latest number is 30.76. So Microsoft is not too different from S&P 500. Come on. Let's assume a price of $100. Doesn't matter what it is.